You started the recording? Okay, I didn't see it. There we go. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 17th, 2020 City of North Bend Council meeting. We are holding this meeting virtually, as we have been for quite some time at this point. Would the clerk please confirm the roll?
Your Honor, all council members are present.
Thank you. I hope everybody on the call is safe and healthy this evening. We have a good sized agenda tonight with some of the most important business of the year for council consideration. And so we will get right to it. First item up on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve consent.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Elwood, second by Ms. Miller.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye. Nay. Oh, two.
I got Mr. Rosen and Mr. Garcia, was that correct? Okay, motion carries with Mr. Rosen and Mr. Garcia voting nay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is our public comment. I'm going to lead this off tonight. Before I invite the first person up here, I want to make an announcement, and then I'm going to make an invitation for the start of public comment. It's with a heavy heart that I inform everyone on the call of the passing of Dave Olson, a member of our community. Many of you remember Dave as a regular attendee at our city council meetings, where he provided reports, particularly on the Kiwanis Club activities, as well as other community happenings. It was an honor of his caring and commitment to this community that he was awarded the first ever Community Spirit Award back in 2012. He will be missed by all of us, and we extend our sincere condolences to his family during this difficult time. I want you to know the administration is discussing an appropriate way of honoring his memory, and we'll be engaging with council to look for ideas as well in the near future. At this time, I want to invite, I believe he is here with us on the call, former Mayor Ken Herring to be the first public speaker tonight, and I believe Dave's sister Judy Teminyo, if I'm pronouncing that anywhere near correct, I'm sorry if I'm not, who'd like to say a few words. Ken, if you're there, if you'd unmute, please.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, for obliging me to speak about Dave. I've known Dave a long time. He passed away on Friday, November 6th at his home in North Bend. He was 67 years old. Dave was a good man with a heart of gold, and he was all about giving. In 2011, I had the honor to present to him the Community Spirit Award. In the process of reviewing the names of individuals nominated for the Citizen of the Year, one person stood out as deserving special recognition, not just for his work in 2011, but for an ongoing body of work within the community. We created the North Bend Community Spirit Award for those special people that have led by example within our community. David Olson was the inaugural recipient of the Community Spirit Award because he spent most of his adult life giving to others. He was a man of faith who volunteered regularly for the North Bend Community Church. I lost my place. Okay, he was a man of action, working week after week to serve those less fortunate, at least he thought they were, as a volunteer at the Mount Si Helping Hands Food Bank. He was also an active member of the Snoqualmie Valley Kiwanis, having joined to follow in the footsteps of his father. In my conversations with Dave, it was apparent that his most fond work was with the Mount Si High School Key Club, and he served as a Kiwanis advisor for many years. He was a volunteer among volunteers, which included the food bank, Relay for Life, Night on a Dark Trail, Ringing the Bell for Salvation Army, and the Key Club. and North Bend Community Church. And within his work as advisor to the Key Club, when the team members who were involved with Relay wanted to bring their pets along and were denied, Dave helped them create their own fundraiser for the ACA called Bark for Life. And I was told that he would often wear a dog costume to that. So I was often asked why I allowed Dave to speak at so many council meetings. I mean, every council meeting, just about. And my response was, not only was it his right, but inside I knew it was also good therapy for him and good for me too. Dave loved his church, was an example of a good Christian. Dave's life was not easy, because he had some unique characteristics, and he received more than his share of hazing and bullying. His ability to love and to forgive and forget, was an example that we should all try to emulate. Those that knew him realized that he had one of the biggest hearts in the entire Snohomish Valley. And he will be missed. Dave Olson, you will be missed. He would often end conversations with, God bless you. So I say tonight, God bless you, David J. Olson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Judy, I think I see you there if you want to unmute and say a few words.
Yes, hi, I'm Judy Tamigno, and very good pronunciation job, Rob. There's not much I can add to what Ken said. We all really miss David, and we appreciate the community just taking care of him and including him and allowing him to give, because it really kept him going. Anyway, as you say, he volunteered for so many activities and volunteered many hours at the food bank and Kiwanis, but you know, he really enjoyed that, all of those works, and you can tell, we all knew that he was happy and he was productive and he was busy, and so we knew that he was doing all right, and we were all just very surprised to learn that he had passed away. So anyway, I wanted to thank everybody for the kind words, and if you have any concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. Ken has my number, and we now live in Puyallup, so we're a lot closer to North Bend. And yeah, anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate that. I'm going to pause in this public comment section for a moment, just for a moment while you're still on. I suspect one or more council members who would like to speak. Alan, I see your hand.
You know, a lot has been said tonight, and I agree with everything that's been said. But from a personal matter perspective, as somebody who he greeted every time from a council perspective, and whenever you saw him, you always got a smile. That was great. But also from perspective of a daughter who was president of the Key Club, who he worked very closely with. And the amount of support and the amount of effort he put into those kids, I don't think anybody would ever know what he did and how he did it. And I know a lot of people seeing him walking around didn't understand it, but I have a daughter right now that is finishing her final year of college, and what she learned from him was invaluable. And I got to thank you from the bottom of my heart for his efforts and what he did for this community and the kids of this community. He was a stellar person, and I took his passing very hard.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia.
I don't think the average person will realize what we have lost. I mean, this man was everywhere all the time, giving his time and effort to make North Bend, and Snoqualmie, the whole valley, a truly better place to live. He always went out of his way to greet you and to see how you were doing. He never was like, hey, look at me, I'm doing all this stuff. But literally at everything, volunteering, supporting, participating, and we truly have lost a great asset to our community that I don't think many people will realize. He came to every meeting, always contributed, always had something good to say about somebody making a difference in our town. Never himself, but always, the groups he participated in, and always let people know what was going on. And it was truly sad opening up that email. And I hope that the city, all of us together, can find the appropriate way to offer a memory of Dave that's in longstanding. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rosen.
Yeah, one of the things I miss most about this whole COVID Zoom meeting is just not having the opportunity to see David. He always would come by and shake your hand. He was the first person usually to greet you when you walked in the room. And I think Chris and everyone else has mentioned how he always was positive. You could be having the worst day, and there's this guy who's just got the most incredible outlook on life. And I miss that during this period of being on Zoom, and I'm really going to miss that in the future when we go back in that meeting room and he's not there. He wasn't just at every council meeting. He usually was the only person at the council meeting. He was an audience of one for most of us for many years. And it's just not going to be the same without him. He took an interest in everything we did. He was always there. As I said, he was such a part of this. And I just can't imagine getting together in person again and not having him there. He is going to be missed. He was a great man for everything he did for the community. I'm not good at putting words to these things, so I'll let others who are better. Thank you, Ken, for coming by and speaking tonight. You summed it up fantastically.
Thank you. Mr. Laudenbach.
Judy, thank you. Ken, thank you for the kind words. I think all of us will remember Dave as somebody who was a part of the community from the very first time you walked in that council meeting as a council member. Dave was somebody special. It didn't matter if it was snowing, if it was raining, if it was sleeting. Dave would walk into that meeting and light up the room. And we're all going to miss that. We're going to miss everything about his work, but mostly about his personality and who he was. And I personally am going to miss Dave very much because he was one of the bedrocks of the community that you could always count on. And he always had a positive, uplifting message. He always was somebody that you could count on to get to the meeting and just bring it together at the very beginning. It didn't seem like a meeting if Dave wasn't there, it just didn't seem like it. And we're going to miss him. We're going to miss him. We already miss him, but we're going to miss him even more, as others have said, when we're back live. And we will find a way to honor him and his memory and his good works. And I look forward to being a part of that process. So Judy, we're very sorry for your loss. It's a loss for the entire town. And God bless you.
Okay, now, Mr. Elwood.
Thank you. And thank you, Judy. We've not met, but I see there's a similar sparkle in your eyes as there was in Dave's. So I can definitely see the wonderful relationship there. And thank you, Ken, for coming and speaking. I got to know Dave over the last 5 years that I've been on council, and I got to tell you, I'm just as impressed as everybody else here. The fact that he would trudge through any weather to get there to give us his 3 minutes of, what his State of the Union seems from his point of view. I loved it. I welcomed it. After the meetings, coming up, shake your hand, talk to you about whatever it is. And he always had, I love this little inflection when he was making a point at the end of his sentence that always went up. And there was just this neat little dynamic in the way he interacted with us. And so I definitely recognize the loss. And I also want to say that when I heard the news, it made me stop and think. And it's terrible to think that it takes a loss such as Dave to get this to register, at least in my head, that during this time, this Zoom culture that we're in, I'm taking for granted the fact that I've got the luxury of this camera, that I can log in to internet and I can connect with people outside of my home and do things. And it really made me stop and think. And I remember the conversation was like, if I had just thought about it, perhaps I could have gone over there and got him wired up or something. And so I thank Dave for reminding me that there are others out there that, are connected to community, are very important, and that I should be thinking more about. And that's the one thing that I think this Zoom culture is kind of, at least for me, distance myself from actual human interaction with people that matter. And so I'm very sorry for your loss. I do feel heartbroken that I should have thought about something, because he lives right down the street from me. There's a number of things. It's not about me. It's just, I just want to recognize that it takes a loss of somebody as impressive and as important as Dave to sometimes wake some of us up that are just not thinking in that spirit. And I just want to be honest and forthcoming with that thought. And I appreciate everything he contributed to the community, and he will be missed greatly. And I know we'll be able to work something out to honor his memory. So thank you. And thank you for coming. And again, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
don't know if it's
Mary?
appropriate for me to thank you after everyone speaks or not. Just wait.
Yeah, I do have another council, and absolutely, Judy.
Okay.
Mary, you didn't use all your time, but just a second, let me move to Council Member Miller.
Hi, everybody. Judy, I'm so sorry for your loss, as everybody else has said the same sentiments of such a tragedy to lose someone of such lovingness. He was selfless, the epitome of kindness, and had a great thing to say about anybody at any time. I met him many years ago through Relay of Life, for Life, excuse me, and watching and witnessing many council meetings before I became a council member. So my heart is also broken. When I heard that news, it was really hard to take. So we will do something for your brother and in his honor, I know, and love to you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're hoping to do a memorial gathering, and perhaps in the spring or the early summer, or whenever that's allowed. And I would certainly hope that you all would come and say hi and do that with us too.
I think you can count on a large turnout, Judy. Thank you. Please do make sure that we're aware of that. And I want to thank both council's indulgence as well as the other members of the public tonight for this slightly a pause in the normal procedure. But I think as you heard expressed, Dave was a special person. I had that same reaction to him in council meetings, the positiveness, the friendliness always there. And as we moved to the new council chambers, it became evident to me, as he said, I had to walk a lot further in the rain to get here. That wasn't much fun. So I'll remember that of him as well and in the thought. So thank you all. Thank you, Judy, for coming. Thank you, Ken, for your words in council. And we'll let it rest there for right now, but you'll be hearing more about that in the future. At this point, I'll reach out again, and I saw Dawn put into the chat box. If you're a member of the public wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda and wish to do so, now is that time. Indicate in the chat box, or if you've called in on the phone, *9. And Don will call on you, and otherwise we'll move on. Don, I'm not seeing any.
No.
Okay. Next up on the agenda, presentations and appointments. We do have one this evening, AB 20-155, an appointment to the Business and Economic Development Commission. It is my pleasure, very big pleasure, to be recommending to council the appointment of Beth Burrows to position number 3. Ms. Burrows, this motion that I'm asking for tonight is to fill the last several weeks of the current term through the end of this year, and then concurrent with this motion as the new appointment for the term January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2024. So we don't have to force her right back here next month for another appointment. I've known Beth for, almost from the time that I got here through Girls in Scouting, and I've tracked what she has done for the community through time, her involvement in economic development by being a business owner, by being a property owner, by her activities in the Downtown Foundation, as an owner of the theater, as you know, as a person promoting and creating the arts and industry nonprofit that is working towards new things as well. And so I am firmly looking for that motion. First off, I think I would like to invite Beth. Are you with us tonight? I've got a large number, so I'm not tracking if she's made it. I know she was in an earlier meeting. If you're there, Beth, you better unmute and tell me you're there. Okay, it looks like she didn't make it. She actually sat in on the Economic Development Commission meeting, which was held a few hours ago. So her presence was already, I'm sure, felt in that group. So I would entertain a motion, please. Mr. Elwood.
Motion to approve AB 20155, confirming the appointment of Beth Burrows to position number 3 on the Business and Economic Development Commission to fill the current term expiring December 31st, 2020, and a new 4-year term expiring December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Elwood, second by Ms. Miller. Discussion.
I'll just lead. She's a dynamic personality in the community. You see where her heart is. Interacting with her on things that are on the nonprofit front have been great. She's a good, powerful, positive force to have on this particular commission, helping us move forward. So I'm sure she'll pass unanimously, but I just want to put those positive words of support out there for her.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, I think that Beth brings a high energy, positive attitude, and is clearly invested in our downtown, which I know there's more to economic development than just the downtown, but that's a key factor, is that she has put her money where her mouth is to improve North Bend, and her energy and her time and her desire to make this a better place. So I fully support Beth doing this.
Thank you. Ms. Miller.
I've known Beth and her family for years. I have nothing but the best things to say about her. And she's not only gracious, she's whip smart. Her ego is in check. She'll laugh at that, I hope. She does love this community and every part of it and every aspect, and has all the best thoughts to help provide the future for our city. So I love her. We're lucky.
Thank you. Alan.
Yeah, just to echo what everybody said. She obviously believes in this community, loves this community, and in the end, I just want to thank her for stepping up and helping us. These positions take a lot of work and a lot of time out of your day, And it just shows another point that she's willing to step up and help the community any way she can. So thank her for stepping up.
Thank you, Mr. Laudenbach.
Thank you. Yes, Beth is dynamic. She's the right person for this position, and congratulations to her. And thank you, Beth, when you listen to this, for stepping up and agreeing to serve. One thing I would like to mention is that, as you know, during this recent round of shutdowns for the COVID crisis, a lot of businesses downtown, including one of Beth's, is impacted directly by that shutdown. So anything that individuals can do to maybe go in and help support her in any fashion, well, I'm sure would be greatly appreciated. Herself and other downtown businesses that are negatively impacted by the recent shutdown.
Thank you. And with that, my concluding comment will be, those of us that know Beth also know that she's very shy and retreating for a person who accomplishes so much. The last time that I was able to get her to a council meeting for an award, I had to trick her. So it's somewhat not as a surprise to me that she didn't show tonight. I literally had to trick her into coming for the last time. So appreciate that. And with that, call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All those in
Aye.
favor? Aye.
Do I have any? Thank you, Mr. Not Pro Tem Loudback. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. We will move on to commission and committee reports. And Mr. Loudback, I'll come right back to you, Community Economic Development.
Thank you, Your Honor. We had a rousing meeting this afternoon of the Community Economic Development Committee. We had a couple items on the agenda. The lead item was a potential development off of Southeast North End Way and Tanner Road that we had a preliminary meeting with the proponents, and it's an intriguing project. And we're in the very early stages there, and we look forward to further discussions. It's very exciting, an opportunity to bring 100 living wage jobs to North Bend, which is always welcome. The second item was our Commerce Grant housing update from staff, and that was the extent of the meeting. That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you. Finance and Administration, Mr. Gottheld.
Thank you. The Finance Administration Committee met November 3rd by Microsoft virtual team meetings. We discussed the payroll service contract. Lo and behold, it didn't go up. So that was a surprise too. Thank you for that. We talked about technology purchases. We discussed the ordinance setting the 2021 property tax levy and discussed the 2021-22 proposed budget ordinance, which will be on the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Would you like to go on to Eastside Fire and Rescue while you've got the floor?
Absolutely. Pull that one up right now. Give me 1 second. Whoops. All right, here we go. So the Eastside Fire and Rescue Board met virtually on November 20th at 4 o'clock. The fire chief did a PFAS presentation, presented King County Commissioners. The state announced that will provide additional grants for us effective January 21st to continue searching for how we mitigate the PFAS on site. So that was good. So we're working with the consultant to get that moved forward. He discussed COVID and talked about currently 22 members in quarantine or isolation. We discussed the impacts that the department and the process of contract tracing is creating. We discussed a program that we're working with the Issaquah Food Bank to bring additional services to those that might not need emergency services. So these are people who might call us frequently because of tripping issues, or because they're calling because of other issues that if we set them up with a counselor or somebody else in the field to help them mitigate these issues, it would lower the cost of providing services throughout the community. So that's an exciting thing we're moving forward. And we had discussed and hope we'll get him to come back. We discussed the new wildland urban interface fire risk map. And I know that'll be discussed a little through the public safety. We got a little update on that from the chief. And I think when it gets a little clearer and we get a little bit more, I think it's something we want to bring him back to present again. And that's it. We adjourned, and our next meeting is in December.
I'd like to get you to reprise again what you said about the number of members impacted. I want to make sure the public is hearing and understanding how serious COVID is impacting the community and what it could mean if we're not taking appropriate precautions. How many?
There are 22 members in quarantine or isolation right now. The other thing I would tell you to add to that is we are seeing an increase of transports for COVID-like symptoms. And then I would also remind everybody is still safe, because the last time that we had this, we saw an increase of cardiac arrest because of deaths from cardiac arrest because people were afraid to call the emergency services. So even though we are impacted, we're still able to provide services. We can still safely transport you and safely help you out if you have any type of emergency. So please, if you need it, call them. Do not wait because you're in fear of COVID. That's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you. Public health and safety, Mr. Garcia. You're muted, sir.
Would maybe suggest we turn off the chat until it's appropriate time to bring it back up again. Secondly, we met on November 10th at 4 p.m. We discussed the notion of having a trial period on allowing all-terrain vehicles that are street legal in North Bend. We've kind of been talking to Nick at the Snoqualmie PD about that. We had a update on the shocking fact that our jail contract is going to go up this next year, and some ways that we could look at kind of mitigating our costs there. We also had the same update from Eastside Fire and Rescue. Got some pretty interesting facts about not only that, the COVID update, but also some of the local fire issues that we had over the summer in like Bonnie Lake and whatnot. And then we had heard from the police update, and everything is going pretty well there. They were heavily impacted by COVID as well and had half of their officers out at one time. Luckily, they still had enough to run the proper amount, but those individuals worked long 12-hour days until everybody got this taken care of. And those of you that are in the chat, let's remember that that is not for your political opinions. It's for the running of the meeting, please.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Elwood.
Thank you, Your Honor. Couple things. First is we had a council work study on October 13th. We discussed the overview of the 2021 and 2022 proposed budget. We also discussed human services and community organizations grant funding. That was a virtual meeting. Then we also had another virtual work study meeting on October 27th. The topics included a King County growth targets presentation and discussion. I hope they still are okay with that conversation with us. And then legislative priorities as well. And then I believe our next work study is slated for November 24th with agenda items to be determined.
Thank you. To your comment about the growth presentation, I recently was listening to the Sammamish City Council. We were very kind. Let's see, Mr. Miller, you're up for commission reports.
Okay, do I sound like Mickey Mouse?
No, you're good tonight.
Darn it. Well, I'll work on that. Okay, the planning commission had the medium density residential zoning come to them. And they are recommending, you'll recall that the map that you had in the study session had 3 single family areas recommended. The one that's across from Bartels has been dropped from their recommendation. And they're going forward recommending the MDR on the 2 single family sites and on one of the sites for cottage residential. And that will be coming to you soon. The Parks Commission at their last meeting, and I don't have the date of it, but they did welcome their new member. That was November 18th at 6:30. They welcomed Commissioner Luke Duvall, our Youth Parks Commissioner. They heard some ideas about mural at the new wastewater treatment plant tank and discussed some ideas on it and received a report on the Prairie Loop Trail project at Meadowbrook, which did not receive funding in the funding cycle that we were in. They also received a Torgerson State Park update that it would be completed in that month, which would be November. They will be meeting again in December, as will the Planning Commission, and I don't have any projected agendas for them, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. I apologize. I skipped right over Transportation and Public Works.
Get her
It
done.
wasn't punishment, sir, I promise.
Yeah, I was taking that personally. All right, forgive me, I'm reading off my phone since I'm not at home. So, all right, we met on the, let's see, 27th of October. Had about 5 items on our agenda. We went over naming of some new roads, 5 of them that are in the north-south direction, and the new Doldrum site. We also discussed motion approving engineering service contracts with Gray and Osborne. Also talked about final plat approval for Canyon Cascade Phase 2. Let's see, we had a purchase order for a 3-year software contract. Those are always my favorite. And an engineering service contract with Parametrics for the South Fork Avenue Extension Capital Project. And I believe, let's see, Tanner Trail Extension conversation as well. And sidewalk reinvestment program, which is something we desperately need to get going sooner rather than later. That is all, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. I believe I got everybody now. Okay, moving on to the main agenda. Going to move to presentation, the mayor's message. And I appreciate that we have a lot of public attendance tonight. I do appreciate that you're probably mostly here for other agenda items, but we appreciate that you are going to hear about the budget process, where we are as a city, where we're hoping to go, as well as the items coming up after that on the tax levy and the budget hearing. So without further ado, and Ms. Masco, I'll remind you while I'm reading the message, I won't be seeing the audience. So if there is any point of order that I miss, you'll just have to call my attention to it. So it is with honor and a new sense of appreciation that I present to you the first budget of my administration. It is a balanced budget as required by law, which keeps pace with the municipal services North Bend citizens rely and demand of us. As we enter this new biennial budget cycle during an unprecedented time, we cautiously and optimistically face new challenges while remaining committed to providing services to improve the quality of life for our community. Therefore, while this budget largely reflects programs and policy long in place, it does address changes in the services provided and how we provide them, along with anticipated changes within and of our revenue sources. We're wrapping up one of the most challenging and frankly scary years that most of us can recall. But COVID-19 will not endure, and we will persevere. While we enter this new biennium still facing pandemic-related economic challenges, we remain confident that we are making the right choices in addressing both our near-term and long-term needs. Those choices will protect and preserve the health and well-being of our citizens while also preserving the city's fiscal health, and that of our staff and facilities. Looking back at Mayor Herring's 2018 biennial budget message, I'm reminded of what a difference a short time can make. At that time, the mayor forecasts an economic downturn, in 2019. Even with record low unemployment, rising interest rates were predicted to cool the economy. A little over a year later, not only did the downturn not materialize, we instead got walloped by the coronavirus pandemic with extraordinarily high unemployment, a reduction of interest rates to near zero, and yet surprisingly, a resilient local economy, all but one suffering from the pandemic lockdown. When faced with diminished sewer capacity, an antiquated plant, and decades of deferred maintenance, Council not only approved a long-needed modernization plan, but took the bold move to reserve most of the remaining capacity primarily for commercial development. This reservation is one step in recognizing shifting revenue sources and shoring up the general fund budget, a budget that relies on business taxes for nearly 60% of its revenue to reduce the burden of residential property taxes. Yes, we do continue to see many new homes being built as a result of permits, sometimes multiple years in the past having been approved. New neighborhoods are quickly filling with homes for our children, their children, and others who enrich our community. We anticipate a continued of the pace into 2021, similar to the 117 new home permits issued in 2020. The past few years have seen the first significant new family housing in decades, and the recent groundbreaking on the 210-unit Cedar River apartment projects on East North Benway continues this trend. We also anticipate the Cadview 25-unit townhomes project on Park Street, the River Run 127-unit apartments with an affordable housing component, and that's near the Chinook Lumber, and the 7-home Habitat for Humanity below market rates homes on 2nd Street. This housing development continues to be a significant portion of our general fund revenue. But even so, a shift is evident, and our planning and public works groups are shifting resources to address it. With Council's policy direction, staff has prioritized commercial development through the permit process and by proposing an overhaul of the economic development plan to guide the city toward fiscal sustainability. Already this is paying off with a long list of potential and actual commercial projects breaking ground, working through the permit process, or engaged in feasibility stages. We have been discovered by companies seeking to build a community connection. In addition to being a great place to live and recreate, it is clear that North Bend is now on the map as a great place to work too. Caracorm Splitboard Bindings is under construction behind the Napa Auto Parts store, if you've noticed that going up. The Snoqualmie Athletic Center is under construction near Meadowbrook. Phoenix Plaza Business and Residences is near completion at the roundabout at Cedar Falls Way. The new Tanner Electric headquarters was completed, and their new substation and transmission line project is underway to meet these growing needs. Also on the commercial front, design and permitting work continues for a 50,000 square foot office and warehousing building, the Puget Western Office and Training Center, and the potential for 2 hotels and 2 restaurants associated with the Army National Guard Training Center project near Trucktown, along with several other smaller commercial projects. We have truly seen a decided shift in permitting work from residential toward commercial. We're also excited about a new development agreement currently in process for the Tollgate Farmstead improvements, which will create the opportunity for a working farmstead, culinary demonstration school, and farmers markets and other farm-based learning activities. In the past 2 years, the Economic and Community Development Department has issued 675 and 692 building permits respectively, for a total construction value of about $157 million and $12 million in collected fees. This activity helps protect the fiscal health of the city's operating budget, and we anticipate this pace to continue into 2021. However, we are seeing the shift from residential to commercial and an overall slowing, resulting in less revenue from construction activities the further out we look. Not only do new businesses and homes bring new demands on our infrastructure, but it also funds the majority of the improvements needed, whether they be sewer, streets, or water. Infrastructure improvements continue at a top priority, with several important projects underway and planned for 2021 and beyond. Completion of the $9+ million Phase 1 wastewater treatment plant upgrade project is expected in the first quarter of this coming year, and we expect to roll that right into our anticipated near $24 million bonding work by mid-2021 for Phase 2, which will complete the plant's ability to serve our city needs. The wastewater treatment plant improvements, largely paid for development and the remainder by user fees, will be completed during the next 2 years and bring much needed safety and redundancy improvements for us on our environment. The updated plant will also be prepared to accept new source capacity, such as the anticipated new sewer utility district on the west side of town and potential for conversion of older septic neighborhoods should they choose to move from less environmentally sustainable septic systems. City Council should be proud of their leadership in addressing our water needs, and that policy direction is being carried out, including several new programs to be implemented in the coming years as part of our commitment to protect this limited natural resource and enhance the Snoqualmie River ecosystem through wise use and water conservation. Our focus on meeting our obligations for mitigating impacts on the river are being stepped up and broadened to ensure we both have appropriate sources for domestic needs and our natural environment. This is likely to involve a fiscal commitment, not unlike the treatment plant investment. These are decades-long services we're undertaking. Work to eliminate leaks from the city's water system are a top priority, and our water leak reduction program anticipates replacing over 10 miles of old asbestos cement water lines with ductile iron pipe. First up in 21 is a replacement of the 6th Street water line in the Silver Creek neighborhood. This overall project will include stormwater culvert replacements throughout Silver Creek and pavement improvements on 6th Street itself. Our water meter replacement program will see the updating of all failing old meters over the next few years, with an aggressive plan that anticipates replacing as many as 1,000 water meters in 21 alone. Rounding out new programs will be the introduction of a water conservation assistance program for all homeowners and businesses to help them reduce use through such things as replacement of old fixtures and upgrading irrigation methods. All of this was set in motion by Council's leadership in passing in 2020, perhaps the state's most forward-looking water conservation ordinance. Roadway roundabouts are not often recognized for the environmental benefit that they bring, yet they do contribute through smoothing traffic flows and reduced idling and stop-start at intersections. Council has already taken policy leadership in targeting multiple key intersections for these improvements in the future, and teed up for 21 is the design of a roundabout at the Mount Side Boulevard, Bendigo or 202 intersection, AKA the first mall intersection. The city secured a design grant of $1.4 million for this project. Other traffic improvement projects expected this year include a roundabout at North Benway and 436th Street in early design plans for several others. And our ongoing pavement overlay program will look to invest at the same level as recent years, additional trail segments and bike lanes, also to continue the upgrade for our overall transportation system. Council strengthened our partnership with Eastside Fire and Rescue by supporting the organization's formation of a nonprofit entity, which brings a more efficient governing model for all of us, that to be passed soon by Council in its final form. In October, the Council again showed their commitment to more affordable housing by adopting a resolution to keep the state-approved 0.1% additional local sales tax at work directly in our community. The approximately $300,000 annual revenue is required to fund affordable housing and will be put best use right here in North Bend. We will be engaging the community and other stakeholders this coming year to help us determine how to derive the best results for those in our community most in need of this help. Many of these decisions were in response to changing needs in the community, and this budget reflects those changing needs through how revenues are collected, accounted for, and spent on projects and personnel. Many of these leadership decisions also faced opposition and controversy, yet Council kept the safety and welfare of North Bend citizens in the forefront and took action to benefit the entire city. When I took office in January, I embraced a Council's priority for improved communication and transparency with our citizens. Led by our new public information officer, we are increasing our community outreach with communication initiatives, including a new weekly community update, a new quarterly newsletter, and a just launched interactive development projects map to better inform our citizens of changes in town. Look for also a revamped website in the near future, increased coverage of city committee and commission activities, and more in the coming year. This budget message would be remiss without recognizing our community struggle with the COVID-19 pandemic. City Hall has remained closed since March of this year, and we anticipate that that will last into next year. Many local businesses will continue to experience depressed revenue and great economic strain, which not only impacts them, but will continue to impact city finances as well. We're all, of course, aware that the governor just Sunday announced a new tightening of those restrictions. The recent surge in cases around the region, and especially right here in North Bend, should be a caution to us all. This year's infusion of CARES grants, while a help to many, will not fill the void, and so we are taking a very conservative approach to preserving cash in our general fund and a willingness to employ reserves in order to respond wherever prudent. To meet and conduct business in our new virtual world, we are increasing investment in new hardware and software solutions. While long a council goal to modernize processes and tools to create a more efficient and less paper-dependent operation, we are accelerating the effort in response to the new challenges, such as those driving these virtual meetings, telecommuting, and online bill paying services, among others. While I would rather be reaching that goal sans the pandemic, thank you, in some aspects, it is forcing us out of the complacency and making these things happen. Despite all, we must continue to process development permits, utility billing, building inspections, and all the other customer service needs to meet our customers, our citizens' expectations. I know council joins me and staff in support of maintaining our quality of life and high service levels during these hard times. While we have plugged the nearly $500,000 gap in 2020 finances as a result of the pandemic through expenditure cuts, including salary and benefits, more will be needed. We are responding by updating our service model and staffing solutions to increase efficiency and adapt to changing expectations and needs. Just begun union negotiations must balance the reality of these revenue impacts with increased pressure on our labor force and a competitive marketplace. Nonetheless, all departments are contributing, including Public Works, Finance, Police, and Fire, to control costs and still maintain their high level of service throughout the pandemic and beyond. This budget right-sizes positions against needs, yet overall, we expect our FTE headcount to remain about where it has been for much of that has been of the last years, including back to the Great Recession. At the same time, we have added hundreds of new citizens to serve and over 20 miles of new roadway and the utilities in them to be maintained. Meeting expectations for service and performance and paying for all of this is challenging enough. And yet we still find ourselves with cost increases for goods and services, just as we do at home. And many of our existing agreements have 3 to 6% built-in cost escalators. On top of this, we have a regional economy, which is driving all costs to the city higher by often double-digit percentages. The challenge of balancing our budget while providing for an ever-growing infrastructure and meeting citizens' expectations is outrunning our ability to keep up. We have seen the cumulative cost to regularly defer maintenance, and we do not want to go there again. We will have to be smarter and better across the board. We can ill afford to fall further behind, and I strongly believe that the value received heavily outweighs the minimal cost to our citizens. Therefore, this budget proposal includes the statutory allowed annual 1% property tax increase. Recent King County data suggests that the average home value in North Bend is now $680,000. Our levy rate will actually decline and would result in a total annual property tax for the city for a person with that home of just $669. That is roughly $1.84 per day for the delivery of general services, including police and fire and maintaining your streets. Think about Snowmageddon, parks, and the myriad of other services and support that we provide the community. This increase is projected to generate only just over $19,000 this coming year for that 1%. And so while a help, it will not in itself cover the increased cost of doing business. To close the final general fund gap, we will be dipping into unrestricted reserves for approximately $200,000. While we considered instituting a common accounting practice of allocating a portion of staff salaries against the capital projects they oversee, Council was more comfortable leveraging reserves so that we can maximize capital investment, and I support that decision. Finally, regardless of our revenue struggles, I am proud of the commitment by Council to step up essential financial support to our social service agencies serving the greater North Bend area. This budget reflects a 30% increase at Council direction, resulting in nearly $130,000 in support of various social service agencies. These funds to agencies such as the Senior Center, Encompass, and our local food bank, and many others, will help to ensure that those most affected by the pandemic have the support system they need. The primary takeaway is that in the face of adversity, we have all created a balanced budget which will continue to provide citizens quality public service, continues to plan for the future, and continues addressing the many infrastructure and business service needs expected by our citizens. And this budget maintains a healthy reserve to cushion the next challenge or unexpected blow to our citizens or finances. We continue to invest in the quality of life that all of us cherish in North Bend, doing so with a continued tradition of fiscal conservatism in our annual budgeting. Such conservatism has guaranteed a healthy reserve and a balanced annual budget. And for this, I want to thank especially Finance Director Don Mascow, who found the path that meets our needs while preserving the contingency that results in our AA bond rating, even while funding major infrastructure improvements. That last should serve us well next year as we seek the funds for wastewater 2. In summary, I want to thank my City Council colleagues for their input and support. We make a great team, and together we will continue to keep North Bend a highly livable, small town community with a bright future. In that same spirit, I also want to thank both our city staff, whose commitment to service to our community sets the bar for all others, and to the citizens of the community we serve for supporting us through this difficult time and the hard decisions that we are making. Know that I will continue to keep the best interest of the citizens in the forefront, with the goal to maintain a high quality of life in our great community that is blessed with one of the most spectacular settings of the Northwest. I'll work my hardest to maintain our special small town character as we progress through 21 and beyond, with the hopes of a happy and healthy, successful year. Thank you very much. And thank you for indulging me in that message. I hope you can wake back up now. Next on the agenda, item number 12, AB.
Hey, Rob.
20. Yes.
The audio wasn't working during your speech.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Did you get in all 3 episodes of that show you were watching?
Only 2.
Only 2. I read too fast. I'm sorry. Appreciate the levity.
I would say after the meeting, you could read it to Rosen again.
I think it's an important message. He should hear that. You stick with me, Jonathan. Nevertheless, we will move on now to agenda item 12, AB 20-156. This is a continuation of public hearing on ordinance adopting the 2021 property tax levy. Quick update from Ms. Mascow on staff report. If we need any clarifying questions from council members, but then we will continue the public hearing.
Thank you. Just a few notes from between the last meeting and this meeting. As typically happens, the assessor's office continues to adjust the assessed valuations all the way up to the time that we turn in our property tax to them at the end of November. So this, there was changes between first reading and second reading. Our assessed valuation actually decreased between the two, and it tends to kind of go up and down, and it could go up again in the next week or so before we submit the final forms. But when we did the first reading, we showed that it was a 9.6% increase over last year's assessed valuation, and now it is at 8.1% increase. Most of this adjustment was not to the new construction, it was to the overall assessed valuation of our city. And so what that did do is it did impact the rate slightly from the first reading to the second reading. Again, as the assessed valuation grows, the property tax rate decreases. So because there's less to spread it around. So there was a change. You saw that in your packet, I'm sure. And other than that, there won't be any further presentation.
Thank you. Any clarifying question, not for discussion, just clarifying question needed by council? Mr. Garcia?
Well, it was mentioned that our rate would go down. But it seems to me though, the rate goes down, but the amount that the person still pays still goes up. Is that correct?
It depends. on the value of your home and whether the value of your home went up or not, and how much the value of your home went up. And actually, I believe during the first reading, the rate actually decreased. Now the rate is more closely aligned to what it is this current year due to the assessed valuation decrease. And again, that could change again slightly between now and the end of the month when we submit the forms to the county. Every week they give us new information. So yeah, I would say it's about online with where the rate's online with where it was for this current year. The change therefore would be into what your home or business's assessed valuation has done between last year and this year.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, seeing no more questions, we will continue the public hearing. If you would like to speak on this item, please indicate in the chat box or by *9 if you have called in by phone.
I am not seeing anyone in the chat box.
Not seeing anyone. And with that, then we will call the end to the public hearing. Call that to a close. And we will move on to council action. Mr. Godhelp, I believe this came through your committee?
Yes, it did. So yeah, forget how I do this. Motion to approve AB 156 ordinance adopting the existing current 2020 levy as a first and final reading.
We have a second.
Second.
Ms. Miller, so first, I have a motion and a second. I'll read the motion again. Is to approve AB 20-156, an ordinance adopting the 2021 property tax levy as a first and final reading. Mr. Godhelp, you have to speak to it.
But what you didn't do is put options in there, and what I proposed is the current 2020 no increase and no bank.
So your motion is not the motion in the packet.
It is not. No, you didn't give me options this year.
So as a point of clarification, Councilmember Gotthelf, the motion does need to read you're adopting the 2021 property tax. What you would need to do, and our illustrious attorney can correct me if I'm wrong here, but you would make the motion to take 0% increase instead of the 1% increase.
0 and no, yeah, and no.
Because you do want to be able to take your new construction.
Yes.
Okay.
The levy for 2021 is done.
Yeah, I just am not increasing the 1% or taking the bank.
Correct.
That's the motion.
Yes.
So with the help of Mr. Kenyon, am I understanding that the motion is still to adopt 2156, an ordinance adopting the 21 property tax levy without the 1% property tax increase as a first and final? Is that the motion? Mr. Godhelp, do you agree with that motion?
Yeah, it's not taking the 1%. It's not taking any bank. It's just taking the construction.
Okay. Ms. Miller, that's a little different than the motion I read. Do you still second?
I like it better, actually.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion, Mr. Godhelp, you want to explain your motion?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Your Honor. Well, first off, this is not the year to take it. Everybody's being impacted specifically in this environment today. And also, we continue to look at financing a lot of things on property tax. And if you take a look at the average house around here, each average person is paying probably about $3,700 every 6 months. That brings it to well over, what, $7,000 a year. Now take somebody who's on a fixed income that has paid off their house and is trying to live. That's an awful lot of money that they've got to cover with insurance and everything else just to stay. So as we talk about affordable housing, one of the areas that we should be looking at and continue to look at is to continue to see ways where we don't have to add additional property taxes. That is a great burden on the people who can afford it the worst, our seniors and our working individuals. That's the reason why I've chosen this approach.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I'll speak, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Elwood?
I don't agree with the amended motion. I think the 1% is of value to our community. And I'll just give a little anecdote to speak to that. Recently, I was in Silver Creek and I was on Janet Road there. And as I'm driving down the road, the potholes were jarring my car severely. And both my wife and I stopped and we're like, what the hell is this? This is actually humiliating and embarrassing that this is one of our streets in North Bend. And we got to thinking about it and she says, well, you know, why don't you do something about it? You're on council. So the interesting thing is I went from being appalled and embarrassed because I started thinking if I lived on this street and I'm trying to teach my kid how to ride a bike down here, that's not going to happen. I have to go to some other neighborhood to do this. Potholes are just horrendous. You drive around Silver Creek, you'll see lots of roads like that. And what I found myself doing was taking the position as a council member, trying to defend the neglect, explaining we only have so much money, we have to prioritize, things don't always happen when we want to happen. Who knows, this road may be fixed 20 years from now, but we just don't have the money to do it. The only way we get money is through 1% initiatives like this. They're incremental in value, they're cumulative, they add up over time. And really of all the taxes that we could pass, this one has the least amount of impact to a household. Now I understand there are folks where every penny counts in the household. That makes sense to me. But when we start looking at this 1% and the gradual build and value of it over time, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think if we get the full amount of the 2020 property value, and there's some skepticism that we'd even get that would amount to about $150,000. When we're looking at this $17,000 to $20,000 that we can take, that can add value to the street overlay systems that we need to do. In fact, that's what we've done with this tax before, is we've earmarked it for those special purposes. We put it in street overlay fund where it adds value. Now, it is small relative to the rest of the funds that we have, but it does have value and it brings some meaning back to our community. It's dollars that are being spent here. And so as I sat there trying to explain to her the difference of the reasons why we're in this state and why this road and some of these others are being neglected, I found myself actually flipping and I'm sitting here defending the neglect. And that was an appalling state for me to be in as well. And I looked at the dozen or so houses that live there and I'm sitting here thinking, what am I saying to these folks? No, we can't pass the 1%. We can't get this 20 grand or however much it is, pennies on the tax dollar. And we're just going to have to continue to defer maintenance in your neighborhood because we don't want to take this small accumulative tax to help you out. And that's effectively what this is. Now, I understand that when you look at federal taxes, state taxes, and the whole burden of taxes altogether as a whole, that is a tremendous impact. But I would say to you, I've not seen any opposition from our community on this 1% in the 5 years that I've been on this body. None. No one's complained about it this year. In fact, when the county, when Dow Constantine imposed his tax for affordable or for homeless camps in Seattle, just instituted it blindly, came to our community and said, we will take money from your neighborhoods to put it in Seattle. I didn't see a whole lot of people complaining about that. When we look at all the measures that just recently passed, special purpose districts who are asking for tax dollars to improve the situation, to improve the community, the majority support those initiatives. Harborview, for example. Skyview has been one of those taxing districts that actually has to come back to our community every couple of years just to do a maintenance operation so they can stay afloat. This is the first year that they went to try to pass a bond measure, and they needed 2 propositions to do it. It didn't pass because one of those propositions needed 60% support. Do you know how much support they got from this community? Like 56%, almost that 60%. So that's the community speaking out saying, hey, those tax dollars matter because it's helping our condition here. So when I think about tonight, we even gave, there's a fair audience here. You know, does anybody want to speak out about this tax? Most people hear about marijuana. That matters. When we talk about putting a street through a neighborhood, they show up in droves because it matters. But when we're talking about building the revenue that we need to do overlays, sidewalk repairs, which in fact was a big point of contention and a purpose for why some of my colleagues here didn't want to reappropriate funds at our last meeting because sidewalks came up. This is where we get those dollars to do that. And we've collected it, I think in the 5 years I've been here, we've collected it twice. These are dollars that are, yes, pennies relative to the grand scheme of things, but they're also dollars that add up over time. That's why I urge my colleagues to not support the amended amendment put forward to you, the amended motion put forward to you. And we go back to the original one and we seriously contemplate taking the 1% because it matters. And this is one of those taxes that gradually grows and it doesn't sting the way some of the opposition wants to dramatize that it does. And in fact, I've seen very little evidence that our community doesn't want its streets fixed, its sidewalks fixed, and I see very little evidence opposing tax initiatives like this on the grand scheme, countywide, as well as local-wide. A majority of our citizens support these initiatives. So I hope that you, my colleagues, don't support this motion and we go back to the original motion, and that's the one that we passed tonight. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Colon.
And didn't we at that last meeting when we were talking about this tax, wasn't it stated that if you are on a fixed income living, you know, as an older person in a house that you've been in forever, that there were programs that they could be a part of, that they wouldn't have to pay that property tax?
Ms. Masco, that probably would be best addressed by you.
Yes,
Senior.
yes, the county does have senior programs to reduce property taxes for citizens.
Ms. Colon, did you have more to say? You've got the floor.
No, I just wanted to ensure that that was the case, that people could get help if they needed it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Rosen.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I think being good stewards of the public money also means controlling your costs, especially during times of economic hardship, which this country's going through. And it also means, you know, taking the time to find the savings to help reduce those costs during these periods. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that can easily be found to avoid passing a tax increase. It sounds great when we say, yes, we're going to do roads and this and that. But a lot of times this money goes into the general fund and then it's spent on things like monument signs where people want to spend 20-something thousand on a sign for City Hall. We can do without certain things during certain periods of time to help ease the burden on our citizens. And it's also a gesture to show them that we can control our costs when needed. And I don't think it's asking a lot of the council to make the effort to try to control some costs this year so that we can ease the burden on our citizens. We go to our citizens and ask for taxes often, and our citizens have granted us those taxes. And when we go there for their big dollar, when we go after the TBD and the public safety taxes, those provide police officers and monies for roads. Those are big taxes and money that could be spent and has been spent wisely. And I am in favor of going to the voters for that sort of stuff. And they've been generous with their money because they find that those are useful projects and things that they want. Let's continue to work with our citizens to give them the things they need and they want. But at the same time, let's spend the time and the effort here doing our best on our side of the equation to control our costs if we can during certain periods. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. I've heard from Mr. Garcia, Miller, Loudenbeck. Who else are we missing? Anyone else? I'll take the pause. I wanted to address Mr. Godhelp. You mentioned correctly that you were only presented with one choice this year in this. I did want you as well, and much more so for the audience to understand that comment. Many times in years past, this ordinance has been written with multiple choices, multiple choice menu, so to speak. I feel that was not appropriate when the direction, the activity is to present the mayor's recommended budget, which I, of course, made a statement to earlier and the next item on the agenda. And this is my recommendation, and I fully accept that it's council's choice to amend it, change it. But since I was making a recommendation to take the 1%, that's the way that I saw it being presented. We are talking about a difference of, it looks like, top to bottom in any of the choices, less than $6 a month. It looks like from, yeah, it's about $6 a month or less that we're talking about in that 1%. I'm fine with
Mayor, can I
whatever
call for a
choice.
motion? Please.
Mr. Elwood?
Yeah, since I seem to be the vocal minority here, I just wanted to say
Didn't you call for
support.
the question?
I
Hey,
didn't
I
hear
just
that.
called for a motion.
Well,
for-
you didn't.
for
Oh,
a
I
vote.
thought the call to question was what you are supposed to say, but
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm calling
Yeah.
for the vote.
Calling the question, you need a second for that. Is that correct, Mr. Kenyon?
Second, it is not debatable.
Not debatable. Okay. Call the question. I'll take the vote and we'll do this to make sure that I get it right. Since I know that we'd have disagreement here, we'll run the list. Mr. Godhelp.
What?
This is a vote for the motion that you made.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
you vote yes?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Oh, we're asking, I didn't know you were going person to person. Sorry, misunderstood.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to do a roll call to make sure I get it correct.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, yes. So I have one vote for the motion as made. Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Ms. Miller, you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Loudenbeck.
No.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen,
Yes.
Mr. Elwood,
No.
Ms. Cullen.
No.
I get a motion at 4-3. I don't believe we need a super majority for this. Is that correct, Mr. Kenyon? Therefore, the motion carries. We will not have the 1% increase. Ms. Masco will adjust the budget and remove the additional funds needed to balance from the reserves. Thank you. And next on the agenda, we have item number 13, AB 20-157, a public hearing. Again, this is a continuance for ordinance adopting the 21-22 biennial budget. Ms. Masco.
Thank you, Your Honor. And this is actually a separate public hearing. It's not a continuance. Just per state law, we have to have two separate hearings.
Okay, thank you.
Right. And the only changes or the primary changes that have been made between the preliminary document that the council received and this first reading of the ordinance was the removal of the capital projects allocation. And as the mayor stated, those funds are now coming out of reserves to rebalance the budget. There was also some minor, tweaking as we put in the third quarter budget adjustment into as a revised budget and some other, minor things like that. But the only major thing that's occurred between the preliminary document being put on record and first reading of the ordinance is that adjustment of the capital projects. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions before we open the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing at this time. If you are a member of the public and you wish to speak to this item on the agenda, please indicate in the chat box or by *9 on your phone if you've called in. And Ms. Mascow will call on you.
I am not seeing anybody. Oh, we have someone on the telephone who would like to speak.
Okay. If you can unmute, you need to identify your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Are you there?
Phone number 1206. You have your hand raised.
Looks like phone number ending 8841. Do you wish to speak on the budget agenda item? If so, you can unmute. If not, please lower your hand. If you're looking to speak on another agenda item, you raise it again, please. Assuming since they are not unmuting, they're going to wait for the next item on the agenda. Therefore, I believe I'm looking for a motion. I believe likewise this came through your committee, Mr. Gatto.
Yes, I didn't see a is there a motion? Let me go back.
Page 77 in your packet.
Yeah, I know it's 77, but there didn't seem to be a motion. So how do you want me to, because right now it says resolution forwarding, reading and adoption at the December 2nd, 2020 meeting.
Yep. And we need to close the public hearing.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good reminder. Thank you. We'll close the public hearing.
So do you want me to make a motion to approve?
I think you're correct, Alan. As I'm looking at it, this does not look like a motion. Is that correct, Don? This is simply a notice?
That's correct. We'll be moving it forward to second reading and adoption at the next meeting.
Which was the action taken the last time, right? So sorry, Alan, you got it.
All right, I got confused there for a second.
Well, you're the veteran. You're supposed to guide me, buddy.
Well, that's why I was asking. That's why I asked the question.
Good question. Good question. Great. All right. Thank you so much.
Mayor McFarland, you before, and I think I'm unmuted now. Is that correct?
I am hearing you. I'm sorry. Who is this?
My name is Catherine Cassidy. I've been a longtime resident in the Valley, and I sent an email to your council, and I want to thank all of you for serving. I know
sorry,
that it's
Catherine, before you go into were you looking to speak about the budget item?
No, I just wanted to give you my input about having a marijuana retail store here in the Valley.
Yes, thank you. That item's coming up. If you would wait, and you'll be called on once we get that item on the table. We've not gotten there yet, so if you'll just hold on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up on the agenda is item number 14, AB 20-
I believe Mr. Garcia had his hand raised.
Thank you, Mr. Loudenbach. Mr. Garcia, you had a question?
Would it be acceptable to take a 3-minute recess?
Without objection by council members? We'll call
Okay.
a brief recess at, where are we? 8:30. Please be back in 5 minutes.
Thank you. 5?
Okay, thank you. Welcome back after a brief pause. Again, we are moving to item number 14, AB 20-158, a public hearing, resolution authorizing a development agreement for the marijuana retail store. Mr. McCarty.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. So Mr. Wayne Seminoff, who I believe is a member of the audience on the meeting tonight, is proposing the marijuana retail store at 43514 Southeast North Bend Way. And what he's proposing is to remodel the existing single-family home into a commercial building to house that store. So that property is located in the Employment Park 1 zone of the city, which does not currently allow marijuana retail. So the city does allow marijuana retail already within areas of the interchange commercial zone at exit 31, but to date has not received successful applications at that location. So because marijuana retail is not allowed in the zone in which this is proposed, it could only be allowed through either a zoning amendment or through a process called a development agreement. So for the benefit of the public, a development agreement is a contractual agreement that's authorized under state law between the city and the development applicant. And that allows for establishing standards and requirements for a project that might differ from portions of the city's development regulations, subject to approval by the city council following a required public process. So the city has followed that process, and a draft development agreement was taken to the Planning Commission for their review and recommendation, including a public hearing that the Planning Commission held on August 13th. So the principal benefit to the city in approving the development agreement to allow the use would be the tax revenue. So it's estimated to be approximately $100,000 per year. The development agreement includes provisions to address potential impacts on the use to adjacent properties. That includes limitations of hours of operation beyond state requirements, limitations on signage, design requirements for the building, and security provisions to ensure that cash is removed from the premises each day. So numerous written and oral comments were received at that August 13th Planning Commission hearing, and those both favored and opposed the proposal. The principal comments against the proposal related to impacts primarily to adjacent properties, as well as concerns raised about the potential for crime, visibility, access to youth, and individuals not wanting to see the use within North Bend. So the council has all of the written comments that were received for the previous Planning Commission hearing, as well as the written comments that have been received for tonight's hearing. The Planning Commission provided a recommendation of approval via a 4-2 vote on the development agreement at their September 24th meeting. So I want to note for the council that one of the things that the Planning Commission was asked to consider was whether to impose an annual mitigation payment to address potential impacts to police services and traffic. And the Planning Commission did not recommend mitigation for police services, as staff analysis didn't find evidence of a likely increase in crime or the need for additional police services. That was based on consultation with the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board and the City of Seattle Marijuana Regulatory Program about another marijuana store currently operated in the U District by partners of Mr. Seminoff, who would also operate his North Bend store. And that was also based on earlier consultation by staff with the Issaquah Police concerning a marijuana retail store in Issaquah, operated by a prior proponent for a marijuana retail store in North Bend. And that Issaquah store also did not experience, or the Issaquah Police did not find an increase in crime or security problems associated with the operation of that store. The Planning Commission also didn't recommend an annual traffic mitigation payment, as the proposal would be required to follow the same procedures for mitigation of traffic impacts if warranted, as a part of its concurrency review that's applied to any development proposal. So the Planning Commission's recommendation approval on the development agreement was brought to the Community and Economic Development Council Committee on October 20th for review. And because of the higher level of interest in this topic by the public, the CED committee wished for the council to be able to hear directly from the public on this matter before they took action. And therefore, the public hearing tonight, and the council is not going to be taking action tonight, giving time for consideration of the comments received. So just as a final thing, I want to note for both the public and the council that this is not the final step in this, that if the council were to approve the development agreement, Mr. Semenoff could not yet open the store. He would first need to obtain permits to construct the site improvements required for the proposal. So there would still be process ahead in securing those approvals. So turn it back to the mayor to open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. Just before I open the public hearing, is there any need for a clarifying question from a council member to staff? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. I want to remind everyone who is here to speak on this item, you will please first identify yourself by name and address. You'll have up to 3 minutes to make your comments. Would encourage you, if you choose to, if the previous speaker has stated the same position that you have, you might just indicate such, whether you're for or against the proposal. It is, of course, your choice. And by council request, if you would indicate whether you previously submitted written comments. Again, that is by your choice, but that would be helpful to council to be aware of that as well. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. Dawn, who is our first person?
Joe Merritt, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I did send a written response in. So my name is Joe Merritt. Address is 15319 Reserve Drive, North Bend, 98045. I'm speaking against issuing a permit for the marijuana store in North Bend. And I want to highlight a couple points. First was, while I appreciate the input from the Issaquah Police, I would like to draw the council's attention to the King County meeting today, where they have to reallocate almost $500,000 in recognition of disproportionate drug-related crimes that have arisen from additional marijuana stores in unincorporated King County. This is in their 2021-2022 biannual budget. So they seem to have a little different view than the response you have from the Issaquah Police. The other points I just want to recap that were brought up earlier is the proximity distance to the church where youth activities are held. They're under the 1,000 feet away. And they're also, by my estimates, under a mile from an elementary school. And the last part is, while about traffic, it has been documented with Denver, with studies, that there has been an effect on traffic accident rates associated with marijuana use. And so a decision to not do an allocation to help deal with public safety might not be consistent with what others have experienced. And so if we could not do it, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Don?
Dylan Camp, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Please start with your name and address for the record.
All right, awesome. I'm Dylan Camp. I live at 1229 Southeast. Man, I am spacing on my address. I live at the Cottages at North Bend on Cedar Falls Road with my wife Paige and our 2 small children. This proposed land use affects us very much as we live about 404 feet away, just across the street from the proposed marijuana shop. I've submitted a written comment, which is more comprehensive. It contains links and relevant laws and studies, which I'm going to reference here. I'm going to talk quickly since I got a lot to go through. First question, or my main point of concern is, does North Bend really need a marijuana store? Marijuana can be purchased in Issaquah after a 20-minute drive from downtown North Bend. It's a 17-mile trip. The closest Costco, Home Depot, Target, Fred Meyer, Walgreens, Fatburger, Red Robin, etc. are also in Issaquah. but it'd be silly for our small town to have every amenity that and shop that larger cities have. You know, citizens of North Bend chose to live here to get away from big city life. My second point of contention is, what benefit does it provide to the citizens here? Sure, the city's going to get tax revenue, but you know, that's hardly ever passed along to the citizens. When's the last time that North Bend had a surplus and decided to lower taxes? And also, the additional tax revenue is unnecessary. I couldn't find the 2020 budget numbers, but I'm pretty sure for 2019 that North Bend ran a surplus. My third point is, going back to the first callers, is that the close proximity to public park, school, daycare, and residence. It's unusual placement. I've never seen a pot shop, a liquor store, or tobacco shop so close to homes. It's actually 310 feet from a public park, which is under the 1,000-foot limit set forth in RCW 69.50.331, Section 8. And that's going to require North Bend to enact an ordinance authorizing a distance reduction. And in order to do that, they need to prove that it's not going to impact public safety or public health. And I firmly believe that this distance reduction will actually negatively impact both of those. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And there's also a high chance that purchasers of cannabis will travel the short distance to the park and smoke or vape in the park, which is frequented by families and children, mine included. I'm also very concerned about the basically 100% chance increase, 100% chance that DUIs will increase. In a survey of Washington and Colorado marijuana users, 43.6%, almost half, admitted to driving high within the past year. 23.9% of them drove high 5 or more times within the past month.
Mr. Dillon, you'll need to summarize.
Okay. Are you sure that that was my time? I was going faster than normal, and I was pretty
I
short
have you
before.
clocked it right now at 3 minutes.
Okay, so basically, marijuana users frequently drive while high. I'm worried about that on the road right next to my house. I think that there is inevitably going to be marijuana users driving high and causing accidents. And also, I don't know if the council was aware of this before, but the joint in Seattle.
Thank you, Mr.
Mike
Dillon.
McCarty,
Sorry.
we had a administrative violation notice that was not.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
Before.
Thank you.
Okay. Stephanie Carlson, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Carlson and I reside at 780 Southeast 11th Street here in North Bend. And I would like to provide the opposite view of the first two public commenters. I am in complete and total support of safe and legal access to cannabis in the city of North Bend. Regarding the statistics about DUIs and it's near the schools and so on and so forth. I am the mother of a 12-year-old son and fully have already engaged in conversations with him about marijuana use and cannabis use, especially as it relates to coming up into middle school now. We're very open about that information along with the use of alcohol, so on and so forth, and what the expectations are about it only being allowable when you are of legal age. There was a lot of discussion this evening about tax increases here with the city, and there is absolutely no reason that the city should miss out on collecting taxes that are currently being collected down in the city of Issaquah. A great number of the residents on my street drive all the way to Issaquah for the cannabis company, and there is no reason why they shouldn't be able to get it safely and legally within our own town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne Seminoff, please unmute yourself and you've got 3 minutes.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good. Yeah. I'm Wayne Seminoff. I live at 6501 Lake Washington Boulevard Northeast in Kirkland, Washington. I'm the proponent of the development application. I just wanted to go over a few minor points that I've mentioned earlier before, but basically we want to establish a store in North Bend and become basically a good neighbor to everybody there. We're going to provide a service that the majority of North Bend people probably would like to have. In fact, I'm sure it would be the majority. This store will generate a lot of tax revenue for the city. I know that's an issue. That's something that we'd be glad to do and support the city by doing that. I wanted to mention that the most important thing is that 65% of all marijuana sales now are medically related. So this is akin to opening a pharmacy in North Bend. This is for people who they use marijuana remedies for myriads of things and have just unbelievably good results for dramatic things that were where they had to use opiates and things like that before. And all we're asking the city to do is to have another new type of pharmacy that supplies marijuana related products. And nobody can get it within a 20-mile circle of North Bend without having a store in North Bend. You're forcing people, like if somebody, an elderly person or some who has difficulty getting around, you're forcing them to drive into North Bend, into Issaquah to get their medications, which is it's not that good. North Bend would be an ideal spot for this, and also the location we're talking about. It's the only location in North Bend where the landlord and the zoning will permit having a marijuana store, a marijuana retail store. Although the zoning it's an industrial zone, but it's not a residential zone, it's an industrial zone. And we've canvassed every owner in the whole city who could potentially be give us a spot to put the store, and everyone's turned us down. Everyone. This is the only spot left. So those are my two major comments, and I want to thank you guys for listening to me tonight and see what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Seminoff.
All right, next, I believe you said your name was Catherine. You are on the phone number ending 8841. Please unmute yourself, and you've got 3 minutes.
Hi, I am against the marijuana store in.
I'm sorry, could you please state your full name and address for the record?
Yes, that's what I'm doing right now. Catherine Cassidy, 40106 Southeast 60th Street, Snoqualmie, Washington. And although I'm not from North Bend, I would be impacted by having a shop in the next door town. And the point I was making, and I did submit an email to the North Bend City Council today. I think in the climate that we're in right now, this would be a very foolish thing to do because people are searching for intoxicating substances. And I just read an article about the increase in alcohol use during the COVID pandemic since last March. And the American Medical Association, and I gave the information on where to find those articles in the email, they are alarmed at the rates of alcohol consumption that are going up. It's increased 14% during the first shutdown in March 2020. And later on, they found that there was a rise of 41% of heavy drinking for women during this time. Sales of alcohol in March 2020 rose 54%, according to a Nielsen survey. So my point is, why do you think marijuana would be any different than the consumption of alcohol and the skyrocketing increases that we're seeing during this COVID pandemic? And I'd just like you to ponder that.
Thank you.
Next up is Nikki Prato. I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly. Please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
No, you did a great job. Appreciate it. All right, well, I just wanted to thank you guys for giving me the
Name
opportunity.
and address for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nikki Prado, address is 32005 Northeast 139th Street in Duval.
Thank you.
And like I was saying, I just wanted to say thank you to you guys, and I hope everybody is happy and healthy right now. I know it's tough to say, and also more tough to feel that way with all the stuff going on. I am fully in support of the retail marijuana store. And to be honest, I know we've only got a few minutes here. I could delve into my past and my personal experiences with losing my dad to cancer at 19, but I don't really want to take up all of our time. So I'll move on quickly. With everything that's going on, I think it is imperative to have a store such as this nearby in North Bend. If you don't have time to drive to another city and send money elsewhere, I mean, if it's closer, that provides us with more time with our families instead of having to drive and go spend money elsewhere. Money is not supposed to be everything, but it really is certainly important. And not only would this store generate revenue for the city, but it would provide an important, needed, and wanted service to the constituents of not only North Bend, but Duval, Carnation, Snoqualmie, Issaquah, hypothetical, but I don't think having a store in the city is dangerous or harmful to the youth. Marijuana stores are very discreet in terms of their advertising, and it's very disguised. Normally with these types of stores, you cannot really tell. I mean, from a child's perspective, you can't tell what it is. So, unlike alcohol that's advertised absolutely everywhere on the TV, regardless, we can't control our kids seeing that, but marijuana is a lot more of a discreet industry. And I know going to a marijuana store, you can't even get in, you can't even see the goods without showing an ID, going through a locked door. So I appreciate that aspect behind it. And at the end of the day, the money would be 100% good for the city because it's an important service to have. The times are changing, and I think North Bend also needs to change with the times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas Mary, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Thomas Mary, 728 Southeast Cedar Falls Way, North Bend. So I did write a letter to the Planning Commission earlier, so I trust that you guys have reviewed and read those. I won't reiterate everything that I put in that letter, but I don't know that this is really a question about whether you want a marijuana shop in our backyard. I know that that's important to people. I know that the city has obligations to take an applicant that has a legal use in Washington. And in my mind, I'm against it because I think it's just really mostly a zoning and a planning issue. I think that, the zoning and planning that the city staff does and that the council puts effort into is created for a reason, to try to have neighborhoods have coherence to them and to have things sort of fit together. And so I think it would be a disservice to not honor that's really been crafted in an intentional manner. I think that freeway interchange is exactly the right place for this sort of an establishment. It's where you see it at a lot of different places throughout the country. So, I'm a business owner that's directly adjacent to the site, and I just think that the city would need a really compelling reason to go outside of the boundaries of the zoning and planning that's been done. I think it would be very, very much out of the character of that neighborhood to have any sort of a retail establishment. It just wouldn't fit into the neighborhood. We have the new 212 apartments going in right on the other side of the roundabout. We've got a bunch of construction companies in a row. I don't even know if you'd be able to get ingress, egress out of that site. It sounds to me like you'd have to make a right-hand turn out of the site, which would just be like this maze to go around town to get in and out of there. So I guess I would just ask the council to respect the zoning that's been put in place, not just recently, but years and years back, that sort of clustered all of us, similar businesses into that neighborhood, and to try to keep coherence to how the long-term vision and the planning is put forth. And I would just encourage you guys to allow it as a future use when an applicant comes at the appropriate time in the currently allowable use of freeway interchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Sarah Shaw, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. My name is Sarah Shaw. I live at 16712 423rd Place Southeast in North Bend. I would like to bring up my support for this proposal based on an article from the Issaquah Reporter. The Issaquah Cannabis Company netted the most Eastside revenue for cannabis shops in 2018 at almost $8.9 million and was one of the top selling stores in the whole entire state. That particular shop is the only one that is able to meet the needs of East King County. That includes servicing Issaquah, Falls City, Snoqualmie, North Bend, etc. And just because there's not a shop in North Bend, people aren't going to stop using marijuana. It will instead drive people to spend their money elsewhere, whether that is in Issaquah or somewhere else. A cannabis retailer here in North Bend would be able to help service East King County and the Snoqualmie Valley and the rest of the Snoqualmie Valley. It would rake in revenue for our town. It would increase, and because of the location and proximity to downtown, this would also bring increased business to restaurants and other retail stores in the downtown area. Snoqualmie has banned the retail sale of cannabis products, and so their citizens would be driven to spend their money in North Bend if we were to open up a shop here. People are traveling to Issaquah anyway to buy this cannabis, so let's keep the money in our town. It is a 25-minute drive to the Issaquah Cannabis Company from neighborhoods within North Bend, and as somebody mentioned earlier, that time could be spent spending money in North Bend and spending time with your family. And to address some of the concerns of other constituents, alcohol consumption is far and away not the same as cannabis consumption. Cannabis is a far less dangerous substance. It is also used not only recreationally, but medicinally, and this location would increase the ease of access for those people who need it most. In my personal experiences, shops on the east side that I have visited have been exceptionally clean and very professional. They are extremely diligent about checking for your identification upon entry, and I've never had an experience that I would say would be negative in any of these shops. And if you do not want your property taxes to go up and you still want our town to be able to spend money on services for us and infrastructure, then let's help to cover it with revenue from a cannabis shop in North Bend. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last on the list is Paige Camp. Please unmute yourself and you've got 3 minutes. Paige?
Is Paige still on the call?
She is.
Okay, let's move on. We can come back.
So sorry about that. I didn't realize that I had to type to get into it, to mute it. Sorry.
There
This
you
is
are.
Paige.
Go ahead.
I am at 1229 Little Sky Avenue Southeast, North Bend, Washington, 98045. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that my husband didn't manage to get to. So we're going to talk about for just a second. I was looking up and found an alleged violation at the joint in Seattle from April, I believe, that they allegedly violated WAC 341-55-185. So I just wanted to make sure that that the City Council is taking into account all of the alleged violations that pertain to the people that are going to be opening up the business if approved. And I would also like to just comment on the fact that I have, as a prior UW student, walked past the joint multiple times, and I know the type of people that normally frequent that specific one and how that specific location was ran over the last 4 years. As like I said, walked past it every day, 5 days a week for 4 years. So it's not exactly something that I want in North Bend, and it's not something that I would like to have 400 feet from my house. And as everybody has said, that this proposed roundabout would most likely mean that the traffic is directed down through town, or that they would have to take a right and then take a left almost immediately and go right past the road that leads into my house, opposed to what would be ideal, getting off the freeway and being able to get it just right down by Safeway and stuff like that, or even closer to the freeway interchange further up the road. I guess that's all I have.
Thank you.
Wendy Rendelman, please unmute yourself and you've got 3 minutes.
My name is Wendy Rendelman, 43907 Southeast 170th Street, North Bend, Washington, 98045. I too am against it. I believe that with all of our construction that we have coming up, I believe that we are asking for a lot of congestion as it is already with the traffic coming in and out with all of the big trucks and everything like that. I believe we're going to put our community in a safety. I believe it's going to be an issue getting in and out of there. The Issaquah branch of their facilities is very busy. They have a lot of traffic. If you've noticed, they actually had to add a traffic light because of the amount of traffic that these guys get. They also have in there a lot of times speed signs that tell you how fast you guys are how fast they're going in and out of there. So it's definitely a concern on that aspect of it, being that close to parks and families' homes and everything like that. I just don't believe this is the proper location. That's my take on it. I believe it's a bad idea. I also believe that if you have people that are desperate, these are desperate times. If you look on the news and everything like that, there's been a really hype in attacks in marijuana shops and everything like that have become with armed robbery type stuff. It becomes even more of an issue being this close to homes for stuff like that could be happening. I thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
I don't see anybody else in the queue.
Give just a moment. If we missed anyone, is there anyone else wishing to address this item? Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public hearing. And I will turn, I believe, to Mr. Lautenbach.
Yes, Your Honor. Motion to approve AB 20-158, a resolution authorizing a development agreement with Wayne Seminoff for a marijuana retail store as a first reading.
I have a second. Ms. Colon, were you waving?
I second.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Lautenbach, seconded by Ms. Colon. Discussion, Mr. Lautenbach, you'd like to speak to the motion, please?
I'd like to thank everybody for testifying this evening. This is a first reading. We won't be taking action this evening, but we have received all of your written communications, and I know all of us are poring over those as they do come in. And we understand this is a controversial issue. I think some of the points that were made, obviously, I think the applicant has tried to acquire a property closer to the interchange and has not been successful for a myriad of reasons, unwilling sellers, other issues assigned to the property titles and incidents that involve financing, that sort of thing. But we certainly, as a council, want to take into consideration everything from both sides, weigh them evenly. We don't take this lightly. And I just wanted to say thanks again for everybody and their input, and we'll move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Lautenbach. Ms. Colon, you were the second.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's input, and we don't take this lightly. There's a lot of valid points. I like to go based on really good data on the research on things that you read about. But I do think I appreciate everybody's input, and we'll keep looking into it.
Thank you. Open to the floor. Mr. Garcia.
I'd like to actually see the $25,000 for public safety and traffic come back into this. While maybe some of these things were not found in Issaquah, some of the stuff that people sent us, certainly there's evidence that it could be an issue. So to me, the traffic, maybe not, but the public safety part of this, I want to make sure that we're covered with that. So to me, I think that's something that I would like to see. I don't know if that's a friendly amendment. I don't know if it's, I mean, like, we've had a lot of input on this, and I do feel like moving this forward as a first reading is fine, but I feel like it is a little bit, there's a lot to take in today. I've been generally in support of the of the allowing a marijuana spot. Some of the facts brought up tonight make me waver a little bit on the location. One of the questions that's been brought up is why not at exit 31? Just so people know, exit 31, most all the properties out there have bank loans, which are federally insured, and marijuana is still federally illegal. And so those landlords out there cannot have a marijuana shop because it would be breaking the terms of their loan. So while yes, that is an ideal situation, I think that's one of those things where in hindsight, maybe we messed up that was the spot we put it, because it'd be pretty near impossible to do. I'm looking forward to hearing more from people about this. This is because it is just a first reading. Like to get some more input. I will say this though, I feel like the people that would go to this store are most likely going to travel to Issaquah, or I've heard Cle Elum, Maple Valley. So I don't personally buy the argument that this is going to increase marijuana use in North Bend. I do believe that the people that are going to do it are going to do it. And I don't know that this encourages it or makes it any easier. I hope that by the time this thing is built, that we're actually out of COVID, and that some of those numbers plunge down. I do agree that these are hard times that people are looking for exits from reality. And also say that the alcohol consumption is probably also partially because people, the increase in alcohol consumption is partially because people couldn't go out anymore. So I think that's, personally, I've been known to enjoy an adult beverage with dinner or two. So I don't know, I feel like I'm just kind of rambling at this point. It is a tough decision. Ross is shaking his head. He's like, Garcia, shut her down. I do want to see that public safety money put back in this.
Yeah, Mr. Garcia, I wanted to ask you clarification on that you mentioned. Are you signaling to council that you plan to make that amendment at the next meeting, or were you wanting to make that motion for amendment now?
Oh, because this is a first reading, right?
This is just a first reading.
I'll make the motion now. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to put that back in.
Okay, so perhaps Mike, if you could, you might be able to help them out with, my understanding is that there was some draft language that you could point to that was in the version that went before the Planning Commission. I just want to make sure we get a clean motion.
Let me find that. Hold on.
You look that up for a minute. Chris, would you be willing to yield the floor and come back to that? Thank you. Others? Anyone else like to give some comments while we're looking that up?
I have a comment and maybe a question. My comment is I'm generally supportive of this. I view, I mean, we have bars, we have booze. I like my martinis, but I understand that alcohol is a big deal, but this is, to me, not as statistically as dangerous, at least near as what I can tell out there, but I'm no expert. But given the amount of commentary and testimony that we've received, I'm of a nature to soak on it a bit more and think about it. There was some good, compelling cases put forward with some very specific, even down to the foot distance to parks and homes and things like that, that we need to reevaluate, and some other things that I wasn't aware of. So I'd like to take that into consideration. I had another point and it's escaping me. Let me come back to
Just
that.
as a suggestion, if there are further questions,
That's my question.
We could return this to committee for further discussion before it comes back to full council.
Okay, good, because I did have some questions about some of the data that was put forward and some of the data that was reviewed to say that there was no public health and safety funds weren't needed, and some of that information. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia.
I personally do not think this should go back to committee. I think if there's these points that need to be made, it needs to be to all of us, because we're just going to add a whole nother step, because committee's going to go, this is too big of a decision for only 3 of us, especially 2, because by the time we address this again, hopefully it will not be before the end of the year. Good chances it's a new committee starting over. So I think if there's more facts to be weeded out here, and I just realized that was a horrible use of words.
Mr. Garcia, I think I would support your position.
It's a work study.
Comment. It would only get remanded if the majority of council supported that, of course. Otherwise, we will be moving it forward to the next council meeting. Mr. Godhell?
Yeah, I just have one question, and I think we've answered that. And if we don't have it today, I'd like it at the next one. Is by what percentage did legalizing marijuana pass in North Bend when it passed?
Okay, if we don't have that readily available, we'll have it for you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Laudenbeck.
Just a point. I appreciate Mr. Garcia and others and Mr. Elwood's questions and desire for additional information. And I'm thinking that another gathering of this body in the work study is coming up shortly. So if staff can put the information, if council who has specific questions would be good enough to go to staff and ask them for the information they want presented, perhaps we could take a few minutes at the next work study and make sure that information is disseminated and that everybody has their questions answered.
That's what I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to say don't send it back. I was trying to say the same thing. It shouldn't only come to the committee. It should come to all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else care to comment?
Is this the only location?
Another question that you want posed? Okay. Mike, do you have the general citation for Mr. Garcia's motion?
I do, yeah. So I can read that previous section that was in the earlier planning commission consideration that they recommended removing. So it's section 3.11 mitigation payment. And it reads, the parties acknowledge that the retail store will generate traffic and may require public safety services in excess of typical commercial retail due to the large amount of cash on the premises. Accordingly, the retail store shall make an annual contribution to the city on or before January 1st of each year equal to $25,000 to cover such impacts for the following year. Upon the effective date of this agreement, defined in Section 5 herein, the first year payment shall be prorated and paid in the event the retail store closes. The retail store may request a prorated refund based upon the number of months and days the retail store was open in the subject year.
Mike, did you say that section started 3.1.1?
3.11.
3.11. Is there a 3.11 in the current document?
No. Well, let me look.
Make sure it wasn't renumbered.
No.
Okay. So, Mr. Garcia, I believe your motion, this is to be verified by our parliamentarian, we'll make him work for a change tonight, would be to reinstate section 3.11 as the document that went to the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Kenyon, does that sound right? Mr. Garcia, does that work for you?
So moved, sir, yes.
So that is the motion. Do I have a second to the motion? I have a second by Ms. Cullen.
I second.
Thank you. Saw the hand. Any discussion on the motion?
I agree that we should be doing that and adding it back in.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay,
I
so we're
agree.
gonna go ahead,
Pardon
Ms.
me. I'm in agreement for that as well, so.
Okay. So the way we're going to handle this, assuming that we have also exhausted other comments for this evening, is that I'll call for a vote on the amendment, and then we will move for a vote on the main motion. So at this time, this is on the amendment, which is to amend the development agreement before you to add back section 3.11 concerning an annual payment to the agreement. All those in favor? Let me hear you. Remember, you're being recorded.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries and it is unanimous. At least I don't see anyone saying no. Okay, now the main motion before you is to approve AB 20-158, a resolution authorizing a development agreement with Wayne Seminoff for a marijuana retail store as amended as a first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. It is unanimous. And again, as a reminder, this is just a first reading. It'll be on your next council agenda. Okay, thank you very much for that. And thank you again to, as stated by a couple of council members, to everyone in the audience who chose to be here tonight and speak to that item. We appreciate you being with us. We're going to be moving to Mayor, Council, Administrator concerns and initiatives. But at this time, I did want to let the public know on your agenda, it shows an executive session to discuss potential litigation. That item has been dropped from the agenda and won't be proceeding. We will not be holding an executive session this evening. I failed to point that out to you at the beginning of the meeting. So let me go back to the order and Mr. Godhelf.
Thank you, Your Honor. First off, I'd like to, as this will be our, I think last meeting, we don't have a meeting next week. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody and have a safe one. Please recognize that we see the numbers increasing and do play it safe as much as you can. It's your own decision. And then just heads up is what I said before, as we start to see the increases, please, if you have the need to call emergency services, do not hesitate to call. I'd like to see us not see the increase of deaths because of cardiac arrest because people aren't calling emergency services. With that, everybody have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia.
I would just like to remind everybody too that happy Thanksgiving. Please be safe. COVID is getting closer and closer to us in North Bend. I'd also like to remind everybody that if you're in a position to help others during the holidays, please do. More than ever, especially with the announcement of a new lockdown, there's going to be more and more of our neighbors, friends, and family that are going to need our help to have a good holiday season. So if you're in a position to help out, please do. I was kind of hoping in the spirit of Mr. Dave Olson. I've been texting people from the Kiwanis that I know to try to do a update if they're going to be doing their giving trees this year, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get a hold of anybody. So hopefully if you see the trees pop up, that's a local program that goes to local families. We've participated in that. My wife has volunteered there, and she has told me that it is our neighbors, our friends, our families that use that. It's a community-based effort to ensure that the children and families of North Bend and Snoqualmie have a good holiday season, and this year is going to be tough. I'd like to thank everybody that came to speak. I do feel like we had some good input, and there's some questions that we need to get answered moving forward with this retail shop, as far as, in particular, is this the exact right location or not. So please continue to send in your emails, and especially looking forward to hearing from local people that live in our community, maybe not necessarily the ones of friends from Seattle and Bellevue and whatnot. So thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Ms. Miller. Unmute.
Chris, I just want to say I echo Chris's sentiments and his comments. I too feel grateful for everybody who spoke up tonight and the emails coming in. Please continue that. This is not an easy decision for me to make, and it's one that we want to be very careful with. That being said, again, COVID to me is real. I've lost loved ones to circumstances surrounding it and from it. So I speak from the heart there. So please be careful, one and all. We all love this community and each other. Let's reach out in a way we can to keep each other safe. And like Chris said, there's ways we can listen and take care of each other and help each other out. Please be safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Mr. Lautenbach.
Thank you, Your Honor, and yes, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Please be safe. Take the proper precautions. We have seen a market increase in cases here in 98045. We received an update today that said that we had a 230% increase, 68 active cases here just in 98045. So it is around us, it's with us, and let's do everything we can to mitigate the effects and protect those that are most vulnerable from being impacted negatively with this disease. We're getting there. We're getting to the point where we should be seeing a vaccine on the horizon. The news is good, but let's not skip ahead. Let's take the right precautions for now and move forward. Echo Mr. Garcia's sentiments. Certainly, some of those precautions included shutting down a lot of our local businesses. Many of them will be operating in a modified way. A lot of the restaurants will be doing takeout only. I would encourage everybody to still frequent those local businesses. Do what you can to help them get through this time as well. And that's about it, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen.
Thanks, Your Honor. just want to echo what our other council members have said. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. We appreciate the input. I'm sure we're all going to wrestle with this and figure out what we think is best for the community, but we do appreciate that input, and that helps us make these decisions, although that does make it more difficult. I'll also echo what other council members have said about these difficult times. Take care of your neighbors, friends, family. And as Mr. Loudenbach alluded to, also take care of our small businesses. They're getting hit, in my opinion, disproportionately hard right now. We need to do what we're doing with these restrictions. I understand it, but it's incredibly difficult on these businesses. They're paying a heavy price. So please, let's support them the best we can. Be there for them. So they're here for us as they've always have been in the past. They're great community members. So with that, everyone have a happy Thanksgiving, make the best of it, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Mr. Rose and Ms. Cullen.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving. I just would like to say COVID is real. I see it every day at work. It is not the flu. It is way harder to treat, if at all, and people are dying. I was part of the Sound City Association meeting today, and they said that we're having 547 new cases daily in King County. That's an increase of 181%, which is a different from our previous peak. That's scary. Hospital capacity and staffing is totally taxed, and a lot of our staff are now exposed, and so they're staying home. So we're having shortages in staffing. So please, everybody, wear your mask, keep your distance, wash your hands, and think about staying with your COVID pod and not branching out. And if you're going to have Thanksgiving with your family, please quarantine before and maybe after.
Thank you. Mr. Elwood.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you to everybody who's still here. This is amazing. Appreciate the support. Appreciate everybody's feedback, even opposing views. I mean, we get passionate ourselves amongst ourselves. So it's great to see the community come out and express their views, even though you may not agree with your neighbor. But those are the things that matter. That's how we have healthy debate. That's how we make smarter, sharper decisions. So thank you for that, and thank you for staying on. I would like to echo what Ms. Cullen said. I was attending the same meeting, and the two salient points that came to me was this community spread is spreading. And the parts that really spoke to me was the idea of COVID fatigue. And what I mean by that is people are starting to relax a little bit. The number one element, or number one way that this disease is spreading now is with family. People are, letting their guard down a bit, being a little bit more relaxed when they assemble. So please follow the advice, as our nurse colleague here said, quarantine beforehand, quarantine after, take those precautions, because it is real, because we are all suffering to some degree of COVID fatigue, and that's how it will get you. We were doing great in earlier. You see the third wave, the spike, the chart, all that. That's because we're all letting our guard down. We've had enough of it, but we can't do that. We have to keep fighting it. The second most common way that it's spread is lingering and visiting in bars and restaurants too long. That doesn't mean you can't go frequent those businesses. Try takeout. That worked early on. We were taking out and it seemed to work great. So even if you're scared to go in and stay there, or even if you're fine going in and stay there and following proper precautions, don't stay there, don't overstay, but also consider takeout and other ways to support those businesses, but also keep yourself safe, because the hospitals are burdened, and it's something that we have to all take our collective responsibility and do what we can and follow the guidance, follow the instructions, and we can get through this next wave until we have this 90% effective vaccine. There's a couple of them, as I understand it, coming online here next year. So that is good news. But with that bummer note, have a happiest Thanksgiving that you could possibly have, and say hi to people. Don't let, like our friend and community advocate, Dave Olson, is still impacting us, even in passing, which is think about others. I think Mr. Garcia, you alluded to this at the top. Think about others in your neighborhood, maybe people that casually notice. If there's something you can do to help, or even reach out, or even knock on the door or something, think about that and just try to do something, because ignoring it is not good. Other than that, thank you, Your Honor, and I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the audience staying with us to hear us all out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Not a lot, but to say that we've given instructions for our staff to only come in when they have to come in. So they're isolating as much as they can. And we are still continuing with city services, and we're getting awfully good at these Zoom meetings. But we'll continue to provide the services that the county, that the city needs and that we provide to you. And we're continuing with appointments where they're necessary for building permits and that kind of thing. But everybody is taking it very seriously on staff.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Wow, yeah, so tough evening. Lots of comments about COVID. Appreciate the idea of fatigue. I will admit I was certainly one of those who was beginning to loosen up and be a little easier with visitation and such. And so I get that. And again, I would encourage the comments about please tighten back down, please be safe. Also, one of the things that came across to me is the words that are really of reaching out and kindness and heartfelt concern for others. And it reminds me that this is by proclamation, Be Kind Month. And remember to be kind to your neighbors, be kind to those you don't know, be kind to the folks you do know, and to our businesses and all of those things in between. As a result of the recent rise in cases in our state, the governor did enact new restrictions related to the pandemic. Starts November 17th and runs through December 14th. We should always say at least. They'll be evaluating that. For indoor social gatherings will be rolled back and limited to only people from the same household, unless quarantining for 14 days prior to the gathering, or quarantining for 7 days and having a negative test for COVID-19 having been taken. Outdoor social gatherings are limited to 5 people from outside your household. Modifications for restaurants and bars, including closing indoor service. So as many have mentioned, please think about takeout or outdoor dining if that is being offered by a local establishment and the weather and conditions permit it. But that is limited to a table size of 5. These new restaurant restrictions take effect Wednesday evening, November 18th at 12:01 a.m. Gyms and fitness facilities will close for indoor operations, but outdoor classes, again, a maximum of 5 participants, may occur. In-person retail stores, including grocery stores, are limited to 25% capacity, and common areas and food courts must close. With these new restrictions, it is vitally important that we as a community continue to support our retail businesses and local restaurants. Shopping and eating locally this holiday season are critical to their survival. They've been there for you. Please be there for them. I do want to extend a special thank you to the members of Boy Scout Troop 466 for their help planting 40 native conifer trees at City Hall this past Friday, November 6th. I guess that's actually 2 Fridays ago, in celebration of Arbor Day. That planting will help reforest an area that otherwise would have been taken over by blackberries and Scotch broom. So I very much appreciate the troop taking care of that for us. My final comment tonight is kind of a bookend to the comments around Dave Olson. A little earlier this evening, my youngest daughter, who is now a teacher here in the Snoqualmie School District, called me to let me know that the school district has circulated a note to let us know the passing of one of the great teachers in the district. Miss Miller taught at Opstead Elementary. She taught both of my daughters. She was probably the first teacher that we met moving here. I found her to be a most wonderful person. A few people in talking about COVID mentioned the idea of heart attacks. I do not know what the overall causation was, but it was said to be a heart attack that was induced her passing. She was a great person, and miss her as well. And that unfortunately leaves me in kind of a gray spot this evening of thinking about her and Dave. I do thank all of those of you on the phone from the public tonight, and of course my council and staff. I appreciate all of that. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Your Honor.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Elwood, second by Mr. Loudenback. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Mr.
Garcia wants to hang out. Okay.
Mr. Garcia, I will stay on to talk to you all evening. Everyone else, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Aye.